All right, guys, we are off and running. Welcome in here on a Wednesday now as we wind down January. It is the 29th, and college basketball in full effect. The countdown to madness, March Madness, Ralph, just around the corner. Ralph Michaels, WagerTalk.com. It is another edition of the Happy Hour Show, powered by WagerTalk here as we get you ready for a big slate of college hoops tonight. Over 50 games on the card. A lot of great matchups. We'll dive into those. And Ralph, short card last night, but interesting card to say the least, certainly when it comes to some of our upsets of the night. What stuck out to you last night?
Well, A&M is a dog again. You know, they slow the tempo. The game's in the 60s. They were getting 10, went down to 9.5. Obviously, I neglected to change that one upset from the day before. I think there were 6 yesterday in all from 2.5 or more. So, Akron line seemed a little high against Buffalo. I didn't jump on it, and the Bulls did what they did, and Florida's woes continue. Now, I think 4-18 against the spread at home their last 22 games.
Yeah, it's interesting too. All 4 of those games, guys, were away teams. We made the point of pointing out teams on the road hard to win. Well, not for Kent State, Mississippi State, Buffalo, and Texas A&M last night. They had no problems pulling the upsets off. It was certainly crazy, and also. Some big performances last night. Clemson, it was a game we talked about, Ralph. It was bittersweet. We on Clemson, we said the over, and that certainly proved to be profitable last night. They made it over the 134, and Syracuse was getting 2, but only lost by 1. And Tevin Mack rising to the occasion for Clemson, man. Great job last night by him.
Yeah, 32 out of 71 points for the team. So, yep. You're looking at percentage, and, obviously anytime you have a Cincinnati game right below them, if you got a Bearcats game, if you score 28, it's a high percentage of that. So Cumberland's the main guy. That's the Cincinnati Bearcats.
Yep.
Cumberland's the only guy that can really score. So when he scores, they win like they did, 65-43. When he doesn't score, you got a game in the 50s and they're struggling.
Vernon Carey Jr. again there. Duke taking care of Pittsburgh at home. They disposed of them rather easily. Now they'll go on the road. Take on Syracuse on Saturday in the Carrier Dome. So Butler was a good call by you, too, on the show yesterday, Ralph. It was certainly a game you pointed out. You felt they had a good opportunity to take care of business against Georgetown on the road, and they got back on track with Sean McDermott.
They did, and then on the bottom, Nate Grimes was suspended for the Boise game, and there was not the word whether he was suspended. I went out and used Air Force anyway, and Grimes was the guy to beat him. As Fresno State, the game was tied at half. They pulled away, and Grimes 21-9 in that game.
Yeah, a couple of big covers there last night. Villanova St. John's goes into the Garden, takes care of business there, no problem. And then, of course, Kent State, Toledo, Cincinnati. With Cumberland taking care of SMU rather easily. That Auburn-Ole Miss game was kind of crazy. Yeah, it went over 23, but the poor folks who had the under there last night, Ralph, had to bear witness to not one but 2 overtimes. And, had to watch Ole Miss blow a 19-point lead there late in the game.
Yeah, each team scored 11 in the first and 6 and 5 in the second. Mm-hmm. So you were 66 all in regulation before losing in double overtime.
Yep, terrible. VCU last night also hitting the over in that matchup against Richmond. They did that rather easily. And the late game, too, Utah State there and Wyoming. Very slow first half. I think Wyoming was in the teens in the first half there, and that hit the under by a mile there, Ralph, at 14.5, as did Cincinnati and SMU.
Yeah, Wyoming had 16 at the half. It was 24-16. So Utah State, went through a little period there where they really struggled, but Merrill's playing like Merrill again, and they're back. Remember, they were the Mountain West favorite this year ahead of San Diego State. And, while the competition hasn't been great playing Air Force, Colorado State, and Wyoming, what's coming up on Saturday? Utah State at San Diego State.
Yes, and no, it's coming here, guys. Then this is going to be fun. They'll play again here tonight. We'll talk about some of these matchups coming up on the card here tonight. Take a look at the marketplace, but we'll also go ahead, throw out a couple of trends here, Ralph, that are on the board in these matchups tonight. Over 50 games, just about every conference known to mankind in action here tonight. What'd you find?
Well, a trend we talked about last week, I'm just going to mention it again. It's only 60.6%, but, we're talking 750 games since 2016, and it's as simple as it gets. We often talk about fading teams that become ranked, but when a team is ranked in the top 10, playing a non-ranked opponent, and they're laying 11 or more. So you're playing an opponent you're supposed to, they're laying less than 11. So you have a top 10 team playing an unranked foe, and those guys are either a dog or a favorite up to 10.5 points. 60.6% going 456 and 297. 4 teams fall into this category tonight. Seton Hall, Dayton, Baylor, and San Diego State. Couple other trends, team trends. I think it's our running appointment every Wednesday, Joe, to talk about Houston Baptist and New Orleans.
Boy, here it comes.
So, let me see where they are now. New Orleans is now 18-3-1 over under their last 22 games.
Yep.
And Houston Baptist is now 14-2 over under their last 16 games.
Yep.
Louisiana Lafayette is a team that has played very well in the Sun Belt. They are 14-2-1 on the road. So you find a team that is playing that well away from home. Loyola Chicago doing their underbid again. They're on the road. They're 6-22-1 over under their last 29 games. You have Alabama in a big game against LSU, and Alabama should win because I left them off my card. They were one of those next group of people, so that's a sign that you should bet on them right now. They're on an 11-1 ATS run, and Illinois State on a 1-10 ATS run.
Interesting. Great games on tonight. Ralph, Texas Tech, West Virginia. We'll talk about that Big 12 matchup. Marquette, Xavier as well. But we'll take a look at some of these movers here. And right at the top, I noticed. How about Seton Hall at home tonight, taking on DePaul, Ralph? And this is a 6:30 game tonight on the board. Opened up as Seton Hall 11, but it's already, I'm seeing 8.5s in some places and 9s here, Ralph. Total stuck at 143. So somebody's betting on DePaul here, Ralph. Not back in Seton Hall at home, who's been one of the hottest teams in the country over the last month.
Yeah, and you look at the percentages. And the percentages actually show pretty much even. Yep. So, again, that's one of those public pros versus Joes games where the public's saying, oh, Seton Hall at home, they're dominant with Miles Powell. But, the people making the bigger bets are saying, well, no, we're going to back the ball. They can keep it close on the road here.
Yeah, and they, it's interesting, too. It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out in the game. Another game here, Ralph, that seems to be getting a little bit of love here is the talk to me about Davidson and George Washington, Ralph, because I see this continuing to move towards Davidson. George Washington got a little bit of love early on here in the morning. They are at home. Davidson's on the road. It's one of those conferences where you usually expect to hear about both of these teams come the end of the season, heading into tournament time. We haven't spent much time talking about them, though. But what do you think with a Davidson-George Washington matchup here?
I mean, Davidson is very middle of the road in the A-10. I mean, obviously you have Dayton, VCU, and Rhode Island on the top. But, Davidson on a nice little run, 3 straight wins. But to me, I am not as high on Davidson as the markets are. Yes, they had a nice win against St. Louis, but that was St. Louis the game after they lost that second game to Dayton, where I think one loss cost them 2. So the opening lines seem right to me. It's a game that I think is lined right, and didn't look into it any deeper.
How about and this is a team we've talked about in the past, Tulane and South Florida. South Florida on the road against Tulane tonight, Ralph, but Tulane opened up as a favorite, and they are a favorite no more. It swapped in a couple of places to South Florida on the road here, and the total hovering around that 127. It's actually getting pushed up here a little bit. Interesting year for both of these teams.
Well, I was on Tulane a few games earlier. Ron Hunter, you have the coach from Georgia State in his first year in Tulane. And they played well. I mean, they beat Utah. They beat Cincinnati at home. They beat Temple on the road. But their offense has really struggled of late. A couple kids that were hot got banged up. And, while South Florida, only comes in 8-12 and 5 straight losses,
yeah.
I actually think they've been playing better. When you look at Tulane, they've played the number 7 schedule, and you look at South Florida, they've played the number 4 schedule, but the last 5 games have all been against upper foes. So this is one of those where I agree with the line move. Despite South Florida not winning, they've played well against a brutal schedule. Now, again, it's different playing well and losing against a good team than it is going on the road and winning a game straight up.
And I'm looking here, Baylor tonight, of course, on the road at Iowa State. They opened up as a 5.5-point favorite. It's down to 4, and the total also creeping down, Ralph. 141, I'm seeing 136s now in a lot of places. Iowa State, just the amount of inconsistency, but, this could be another pro versus Joe situation here.
Yeah, I'm on Baylor. They're another one that I just left off. So they were my next team that just missed being the card. I just, Iowa State, you beat Oklahoma and Oklahoma State at home. Halliburton, their best player, has a wrist injury. He's been trying to play through it. He really needs rest. He's not taking rest because they're sitting at 9 and 10. Iowa State's a team that, was a top 50 team to start, probably was a little better than that early. And, they're thinking they still have a shot to make a run and get into the tournament here. The Big 12 is strong as any. So if they can get to, 18 wins and get into the tournament win couple, they might get there. But their offense has really struggled. And even from 3-point land, their numbers are horrific in 3-point. And when you're struggling and you want to play a top 5 defense in Baylor, that's not the team you want to face.
No, it's definitely it's going to be interesting there. A lot of very interesting games here tonight. Everyone keeps waiting for the shoe to drop here in Baylor. It cracks me up, Ralph. So we'll see what happens there. A lot of dogs on the card here tonight, Ralph. Is there any one in particular you looked at that you got circled?
Well, as I said, I left off Alabama, and another team I left off is UCF. So I was close to playing against Memphis again. Their offense is not the same. Now they're going on the road playing a UCF team that, has struggled, has only gone 2-6, but, they have a decent defense, and I just think at home Dawkins has enough to keep this game close or perhaps beat Memphis outright. Oh
man, a lot of people looking at that. A lot of people looking at that game. I don't know what to do with this one either, Ralph. LSU, I've got this sneaky suspicion. I think Alabama's being a little undervalued in this game here tonight on the road at LSU. The number's hovering around 5.5 here. And I think Alabama a little more up-tempo, a little bit, I think a little bit undervalued in the market spot here. I think they have an opportunity certainly to keep this game close. They have the scoring ability to keep it close and go toe-to-toe with LSU. And hell, in the SEC, anything is possible here, Ralph. I mean, would any of us be shocked if Alabama woke up and won this game tomorrow? I know I wouldn't be.
Oh, no, I have Alabama as the better team over the last month.
Yep.
And you look at LSU, 2-point win against Texas, 2-point win against Florida, 4-point win against Mississippi, overtime win against A&M, 1-point win against Mississippi State, 2-point win against Arkansas. Last 6 games, they haven't won a game by this margin. The only reason it didn't make my card is that Alabama's only true road wins were at Samford, which isn't a road win. It's right down the street. They did their local smaller division SoCon team a favor by playing there. And then at Vanderbilt, who's as bad as any Power 5 team there is, maybe, outside of Northwestern or, Wake. So, I like Nate. Yes, he's brought over the same style from Buffalo into Alabama, and they are clearly a play-on team. But, in this price range, they have to beat someone. You went into Florida. Alabama did go into Florida, go 2 OTs. Kentucky, they lost 76-67. But that's my hesitation. Tomorrow I'll say, oh, crap, I should have used them. But, people understand that final process you got to make when you're deciding whether to use a game, a game in this price range. Well, it's not a pick 'em game where you have to win the game. And LSU has kept things close. But Alabama has also not played that real close game on the road, with the exception of Florida.
Sure. Yeah, LSU 5-6 is a home favorite this season. Crimson Tide, you're looking at a 5-1 number against the number when they are, in fact, in a dog spot. They've been actually pretty profitable this year. So it's a good game. A lot of really good games on the card here tonight, including West Virginia, Texas Tech here, Ralph. And boy, you got Huggins versus Beard here. You got two scrappy-ass teams that are going to be going at it. I don't know. Are points going to be at a premium here tonight? How do you think? What do you think is going to happen in this matchup?
Well, the unique thing about West Virginia is they play up-tempo. So it's very rare to have a team with the number one defense that plays tempo, because you associate defense with scoring. Well, you're allowing, you look at the numbers and they're not bad. They allowed Kansas State 84 in a game that got away from them. But, their other games are 54s and 50s and 41s. So, they're playing well enough where I think it is going to a premium. Texas Tech, to me, I mean, the way they're shooting 3-pointers, I just can't back them. This is still a Chris Beard team that, hell, didn't lose 7 games until they were in the championship last year, and they're not accustomed to losing 7 games, and they're off back-to-back losses, and you're off a home loss to Kentucky in overtime, but you also have a road game at Kansas on deck. So when you're talking Big 12, you have probably 3 legitimate top 7 teams in the country, in Baylor, Kansas, and West Virginia. So, to me, while I thought the Big 10 was the best conference, the way it's played out, your worst team is Kansas State, and they're a top 100 team, and you have 3 top 7 teams. It's just a brutal stretch. But I love West Virginia. I love watching West Virginia. I love their length. I love the way their guards play defense. You have a 6-foot point guard, which is pretty tall, and Texas Tech still just playing. You have a freshman and a sophomore in your lineup. They have the uniqueness of Chris Clark, a 6'6" point guard. So, and Jamius Ramsey, who's he's a freshman, but he's not a freshman. So he's one of those elite freshmen. But I can see West Virginia scoring. I cannot see Texas Tech keeping up with West Virginia. And it's amazing to think that this would be Texas Tech's 3rd straight loss, and they'd be 2-5 in their last 7. But, the eye test says West Virginia.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Texas Tech reacts. Tough loss in overtime at home to Kentucky last game here. The kind of loss that could demoralize a team that's already lost, like you said, just as many games this year as they did all of last year, and they made it to the title game. So it'll be interesting to see, because West Virginia is going to come in there and punch you in the mouth. So they're coming after you. So it'll be interesting to see what they have in the tank here in this matchup. It's going to be one of the feistier matchups on the card here tonight. And then you got some teams, Ralph, in the other matchup there, like Xavier, who things just have not gone as well as they had hoped this year in the Big East, taking on Marquette. And, Marquette's actually catching some points in this matchup here. But Xavier, I don't know. It just has not been the kind of year that we thought it was, or at least they thought it was going to be. So it's been a little disappointing thus far.
Yeah, and, you have to look. Your best offensive player, Najee Marshall, did not practice.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be a game-time decision. Another person who has started 18 games, Quentin Gooden, has missed the last 2 games. He did not practice. He is likely not to play. Then you go back and look at their first game. I mean, Xavier got out-rebounded 46-31. I am Marquette. I mean, I just can't. I mean, if both of those players don't play, it doesn't look like Gooden's going to play.
Right.
But if Marshall doesn't go as well, I just think there's no way in the world they have enough offense to keep up with Marquette, who, oh yeah, by the way, we talk about their offense, but their defense is a top 75 defense.
Yep.
They in 2-point, they're a top 40 team as far as 2-point percent on defense goes. So again, it's a one-sided game where we've got some injuries and the line hasn't moved because of it. And you do have Marquette off an overtime loss to Butler. So last time they were off an overtime loss against Providence, they did lose to Seton Hall, but being on the road at Seton Hall is not the same as being at Xavier this year.
Yeah, Marcus Howard dropped 35 on him the first time there for Marquette. And listen, I mean, the numbers don't lie, guys. They're 3-9-1 against the number in their last 13 home games, Xavier. There's obviously an overcompensation somewhere happening here with the odds makers. So to me, plenty of value on Marquette in this game. It's I don't get it, but like you said, sometimes you get those on the board here, but it's just too many injuries, too many question marks for my taste. They are definitely like Marquette in this matchup, and there's a lot to choose from here, Ralph, tonight. So as far as a best bet goes here, is there someplace on the board that you're looking?
I'm going to give out one of my plays from tonight that I released to my customers. And it's a totals play. So, I haven't used them very often, but it's game 807, 808, Wake Forest and Notre Dame over 145.5. You look at what the Irish has done the last couple games, 82 against Syracuse, 84 against Florida State. This is one of the worst 3 defenses in the ACC, and Notre Dame's the other. Wake Forest, you don't think of them as a fast team, and you look at their scores and they're in the 60s and 70s, but they do press the tempo a little bit. They've gone over 9 straight games, Wake Forest has. So I think the number's very, very reasonable. I think Notre Dame, coming off the loss that they have, they return home off 2 losses, that they're going to be ready to get that offense going and get the motor going behind them. So Wake Forest, Notre Dame over 145.5.
I like I like that play too. As a matter of fact, I'm going to side here with the Nittany Lions here tonight, Ralph. I'm going to go Big Ten. I'm going to take Penn State at home, who have been pretty dominant. In fact, 14-1 in their last 15 home games. Indiana comes in. Indiana also very good at home, not so great on the road. They're only laying a short number of 4 in this one. I just don't know that Indiana has any answer for Lamar Stevens. So to me, Penn State's going to be the better team in their own building. A really tough place to play, especially in the wintertime. 4, I think, is a good number. I'd be willing to lay it here and watch Penn State roll Indiana tonight.
I'm looking up, Joe, as we talk. Houston Baptist total is 168.
Oh, I already played the over. That's already in. Yeah, that's it.
And I'm looking at totals over 167. There's been a lot, actually. So
This
yeah,
year, yes. Yeah.
Well, I'm going back to 2016. Let me just go back to this year and look. 2019. The start of 2019. They've gone 26-34. So actually, I got to take out the winner. They've gone 13-17. So, but again, that's everyone, not just the Houston Baptist.
Right, exactly. It's so Houston Baptist. It's just go with the over. Don't even question it. Go with the over. We'll count the money together tomorrow. Is San Diego State, by the way, laying too much tonight? It's 10.5, Ralph, against New Mexico. Do they continue to be undefeated, 22-0 tomorrow morning?
Again, my power ratings say San Diego State deserves to be here, but I will also tell you this. At the beginning of the year, I probably had New Mexico and San Diego State.
Really?
So, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I had New Mexico State and San Diego State. Utah State, couple points clear. And New Mexico State and San Diego State, the next couple of best teams. So, Dream Style Arena, the old pit, is at home. They've won 13 straight at home. They've got the offense. Martin missed some starts and Lyle missed some starts, and they're back. And I am thrilled to watch that game tonight. New Mexico, again, San Diego State wins by 15, doesn't surprise me. New Mexico State wins outright. It may be a game that I'm going to just throw something on the New Mexico money line.
Okay.
I'm not even going to bet them with the spread because, again, if I didn't think strong enough to release them to my clients plus 10,
right?
Why would I bet plus 10? But, again, they're the type of team that the home-road dichotomy has them down where they are. My beginning power ratings, and now they're all healthy, they have everyone back, would have said close to pick them, and maybe even New Mexico a favorite at home. So I'm going to sprinkle some on the money line, and I'm going to go back and add them to the dog list that I had with UCF and Alabama.
Love that. Yes, and I'd love to throw some money down on Duquesne tonight, but friggin' Dayton just cost me money every time I bet against them. So, guys, make sure that you head over to WagerTalk.com. Make sure you get there over there. Ralph's plays up and ready to rock and roll. All you got to do, WagerTalk.com. Go to the Cal Sports page. Also, make sure you are tailing him on Twitter at CalSportsLV. Plenty of great information there. Plenty of games on the card tonight. Make it a profitable night. And then don't forget to come back. Join us again tomorrow as we break it all down again for you. Getting ready for, it's Super Bowl weekend, but still plenty of great college hoops coming your way. So, Ralph, good luck with the plays as always, brother. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Talk to you in 23, Joe.